Hey, Jason. Oh my God, Yolanda, really?
What?
We can't see you at all.
Wait a minute.
At all.
All we see is the sky.
See the light.
That's it. Well, family, we don't know what's going on there with our dear sister Yolanda. We'll give her a moment to get her camera together. But while we do, good evening. Can you hear me? Can everybody?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good God.
Are we okay there?
Can y'all hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear and see you.
I hear you loud and clear and all the movement. Let me
I
tell
don't know
you.
why my phone is low, but
Hey, Yolanda.
There she is.
oh God, I'm only in the middle again. Moni in the middle.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Well, let's get started. Welcome to another rendition and edition of Frontline News, bringing you Frontline news from around America and beyond. And we have an exciting show for you tonight. Family, first of all, I want to say I'm blessed, and I know our staff, our crew, and everybody that's behind that does everything that we do in reference to PEBTS, our organization, our nonprofit. We've had a tired week. I mean, there's just been a lot of calls coming in, a lot going on in our city, a lot going on in our community. So we're really kind of blessed to be here this evening because we were just kind of really drained out and worn out. But we thought about coming on here and just sharing some important news and information and having discussions about the community. We felt that it was so important that, you know, we needed to make sure that we are here ready to bring on the conversation for this evening. And again, hopefully we could feed off of your energy this evening. Because again, in many cases, you know, the things that we've been going through in the city and around the state has really just drained all of us here. But without further ado, to my right is our host, our co-host of our show, former mayor, candidate of Baltimore City, and will be the next mayor of Baltimore City, Miss Yolanda Pulley. Good evening.
Hello. Hello. How are you? Good evening. Hello.
Only Yolanda.
And over to my far end there, my far right, is my dear sister, someone who I entrust as my sister. I don't have a sister, but I feel that we are sisters and brothers from another mother. So without further ado, my dear sister, Donna Chevron Green. Good evening.
Good evening. I pass it back.
Well,
No, I'm joking.
Jesus.
Jason, like, no. Yolanda, like, it has been a long week. Like, everybody is being hit left and right. And my energy, you know, as a life coach, like, I'm supposed to keep my energy at a certain level. And this past week with the pain, honey, my energy is on. Help me. Help me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Mine's going, help me. Help me, please. Please help me.
Well, tonight I wanted to start it off. So I have the StreamYard put up first immediately. And I want folks to know, you know that fan cannot be on. That fan make too much noise. Sound like you have a truck in your room.
That was the fan. I don't know if I'm having hot flashes or I'm just hot. I don't know what's going on.
Do
But I'm
this.
hot.
Mhm.
Do like they do in church, you know, grab the pamphlet and just start fanning. Just
Right.
fanning.
She
know
she
what?
looking for something.
Start fanning. But family, we thought this evening, like I said, we want, if you'd like to join the conversation, the live feed is there. Please jump in once we get started. We're going to talk about our city this evening. And we had a heated conversation. And before we get going with this conversation, I want to say to my dear sister, you know, Donna, I love you, my sister. Yolanda, I love you too. So regardless to what ends up in this discussion tonight, know at the end of the day, I love y'all.
Don, I don't like where this going at.
We may agree to disagree on many
I
issues.
mean, we're going to
tonight.
agree to disagree. Let's start it there. We're going to agree to disagree because, you know, Yolanda, you was kind of taking a little nap. So if you had really had your eyes open, you know how you say you was resting your eyes.
I was resting my eyelids, Dawn. I was resting my eyelids.
Yeah, so you missed it. So Jason and I, we kind of have a little small bet. We haven't put no money on it, but we kind of got a little small bet. And I'll let Jason tell you what we got going on.
So Donna had said to me this evening, because she was very interested in what's going on in reference to city council and a bill that's being proposed by city council president Nick Mosby, who's trying to get a hold of the blight in the city. And the proposal is to really start holding these landlords now, again, start to, and I'm going to say quote unquote, start to, because we've heard this terminology, start to hold these landlords in these dilapidated properties, holding them responsible for the conditions and in some cases the livability of these units, making sure that there is a livability, that they contribute to the neighborhood or community as opposed to take away from the communities. And if they do, in many cases, when there are calls for service, like for instance, the police, fire department, things of that nature, these properties would be cited severely for these calls of service. And a lot of this was to try to stem what just took place recently. And we have to give our hearts and our prayers out to those who come every day to our city and serve our city, the firefighters that come and serve in our city every day, because we did lose 4 firefighters recently due to a tragic fire in one of these vacant homes. So part of this policy is trying to get a hold of what's going on with these dilapidated properties and the risk that it puts to the public, it puts to our workers, it puts to our city, and just the aesthetic, the look of how it looks to our city. So for me, I told Donna immediately, well, the lobbyists are going to get a hold of this and they're going to dismantle that bill. And that bill is probably never going to make it out of committee. And Donna said, well, let's bet on it. Because she's saying that at this particular time, and we haven't set an amount yet, but I'm willing to gamble on this. But, we haven't set necessarily a set time. But for what Donna is saying is that now is the time in reference to change, because of these 4, firefighters who lost their life in the line of duty, that it's time for the city to change.
Wait, what wasn't that 3? One of them survived, right? In the one incident, it was 3 that passed away and one survived.
Correct. Just recently. Right, in the recent incident, correct.
Yeah, so I mean, Yolanda, and I saw your eyes because I know what the normal is. I know what the regular is, but if you don't believe that there's going to be some type of change, then what is the point of you doing what you're doing?
I don't believe. No. I believe the change is coming. I don't believe it's in there already. It's not. They too busy.
I know. However, because unfortunately, because none of theirs was affected too much. So the blight and everything, it didn't affect them much. They only came here. Hello. they only here to make their money, right? So they leave the city. They don't live in the city. Their properties are here. They leave it how it is. So whoever lives there is how it affects them. But it's starting to affect them. So that domino effect, didn't particularly bother them before. Now bothering them because now the staff that's coming into the city that wouldn't have been affected by these vacant homes that don't nobody care about. Now it done took 3 of them in one house. Yeah, almost 4 in one house. So I believe that, and I get it, like it's the same on the same things, but I believe that we can impress change. I do.
Well, see, the only problem that I have with it is that everybody, especially the ones that's been there for years, keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And it's only being said during certain times of the year, when we're about 1 or 2 years out from another election. When we, I done heard this a million times before. How they supposed to be holding landlords accountable, how they putting up these things where you can scan and find out who the landlord is and increasing the money of the landlord. Why don't you just take the property? It's not that hard.
And do what with it?
Huh?
And do what with it?
Right.
Take
Then
the
burden
and give it out.
Then the burden becomes the responsibility of the city. And we've seen now
Yeah,
the
and we already
city,
see they slum
right,
landlords, and we already see how they
right,
leave their property.
Yeah,
So,
but it's
right.
better
they
than
need to be accountable as well.
yeah, it's
Right.
better than having to just sit there waiting and looking at somebody looking at it on their portfolio. It's better than that of them
But I
just keeping
mean,
these houses
you
the way that it is.
you know how we say in order, we say something about the problem, we got to have the solution. So you say they take it and they do what with it? What would your suggestion be?
I just told you, take the property and then give it to, I mean, and basically sell them back off. Use them as ones that's good. Use them for $5 houses. Ones that's bad, use them for dollar houses. I don't care what you do with them. Just get them off the city, off the
The
city block.
But would
the
that be open to everybody or the homies?
No, I mean, you could, and then that's another thing. If we create an office where you take these vacant houses and you create affordable housing, then that's something totally different. Instead of having over 17, 18,000 vacant houses in Baltimore. Matter of fact, I know it's more than that. They just the ones that they're counting. But I just heard. I mean, well, just like just take them in and turn it into something else, or let the people in the community buy it. Why we're not letting the community have a buyback program where their community make money off of these vacant houses?
You said why?
Yes, why?
They ain't their homies.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. So I'm tired of hearing the same thing. Recycle words from recycled politicians. I'm sorry. I'm tired.
um so me and Donna got into a heated conversation. I'm about to drop, what happened, and you're gonna understand why I'm not optimistic on this bill. And I really feel that this bill from Council President Nick Mosby is going to fail, just like he had the opposition from the financial department in reference to the dollar homes. But the problem is that the lobbying groups, those who have the greatest interest to lose here, those who have played the system, because many cases they know the landscape, they know the rules, they know the environment. I even try to, and I never want to say this, Donna, I never want to say I want to educate you on something. I want to give you information, and you discern the information, and in some cases go do some research on your own as well, so that you can understand that for many of these landlords, they're utilizing the laws that are already either on the Maryland books or already on the city charter. And they're playing in many cases the hand that they manipulated, because again, these laws are coming out of these committees. And what I'm trying to get at is that when you start looking at these properties, how do you go by even taking these properties when there are many rules that in many cases protects that homeowner, as long as he's paying his property taxes? I told you there's no real rule that says I have to have windows, doors, a functional living house. I can have a completely gutted house and have it boarded up front and back. And as long as it doesn't pose a risk to the community and it's within code, and code enforcement could come out and cite me for trash, okay, I pay that off. But in the long run, those assets, and there are some of these, homeowners or landowners, or really dilapidated, a shell of a property. That's all they really own. There's some of them that own hundreds of these around the city, and they don't live in the state, and it looks good on their portfolio, because in many cases, the banks are not going to come out and look at 200 homes that you own a property to in Baltimore City. They're going to go by the assessed value of that area. If that assessed value, even with those dilapidated properties, is $70,000, and I've paid my mortgage and I'm just sitting on the deed and the title of that property, that's $70,000 worth of equity right there that I can put on a portfolio somewhere and borrow against. And then what's happening, what we're finding out in many cases, these folks that have these assets have gone on and have built cul-de-sacs and developments and, and all kinds of, properties in other states and other good communities based on those assets that are here in Baltimore City that are not of any use or have any value or purpose to the community.
So
But
Jason,
there's no way to really cite that or to regulate that, because at the end of the day, as long as I'm compliant and I have my property boarded up and I'm
Right,
listing
but
it as vacant
Jason, but
and I
see that
follow the
that's not the
vacancy rules.
portion. And I received your education, so you could. It is what it is, like So I get it, and I love education. So but the portion of the bill that I'm particularly referring to is the fact that there are fines double that's associated with this. So
Yeah, but how much
therefore,
is the original fine?
if you have your little building that's sitting there, no windows, nothing happening, da da da, no one's being affected, then you can go with the status quo. However, when you have multiple fires at this one unit, and then you have people that live between these buildings that's being affected, because what happens when there's this water leaks and stuff? Who pays that bill? They don't. Their house is gone. So where does it go to? So if you got enough people making enough noise, and then now it's not just us being affected. Remember, they're being affected now too. So if you get enough people on all ends to make enough noise, like I get what you're saying about the lobbyists. I get all of that. But including with like the school system, they told us that we couldn't win. But we fight this fight because we know we can. We know we can.
Or
Well,
you
So
see,
I
or you
know.
Donna,
fight the fight because there's a greater cause. It's not in some cases about the victory. In some cases, about waging the war because there is an issue. Like you can't stand it anymore. You have no other choice but to take the arms. You have no
Mhm.
other choice but to stand up and fight and speak out. And
So
that's
isn't that
what's
what we're doing?
happening.
That's what we're doing,
Yes,
right?
yes, but I was just letting you know that so in Baltimore City, and there are folks that are going to chime in or that are looking at this and are going to understand this dynamics. There are some very powerful entities in Baltimore City when it comes to our political environment and our legislative environment, and those forces are very powerful. And I mentioned some of the top ones during our pre-production. I talked about, the FOP being a very powerful lobbying union here and a lobbying group here in Baltimore City, and in many cases tapping off of the national FOP for resources whenever they need it to lobby on bigger issues, like for instance, LIBOR. The FOP went national with that issue in reference to the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and preserving whatever they could preserve out of it when that came up to the Maryland General Assembly and was being looked at being dismantled. They pulled in all the arsenal, all the lobbying arm to come in and take care of that. And here in Baltimore City, you have the unions, whether it's the city union workers, whether it's the public works workers, it's the unions is another powerful group. And then another powerful group happens to be those property owners, those property managers. It's the reason why it took, more than 10 years to get a tenants' rights bill passed and actually where it was formulated, and a requirement that has to be handed out to each tenant as you sign a lease. You're supposed to inform them of what those tenant rights are. That took many years and many fights just to get to that point.
Mike, can I
And
jump
I
in real quick?
watched and I watched during that time in city council when tenants' rights were being brought up, how all these landlords and property owners and all of them came in and they all, told the reason why they felt that there shouldn't be any tenants' rights. How could you not have tenants' rights?
Well, the
But
reason why I'm not optimistic about it is because we can't even hold the ones accountable for having not dilapidated properties, but crazy looking properties that people are actually living in. They're owned by a bunch of Jews. They're owned by people that don't look like us. There's no accountability for that. Um, as far as the water bill, just like you said, there is a minimum amount of money that's supposed to be a month that a person that owns a property pays, even if it's $30. I think it's like $30 a month. They could have took that money and put the houses on taxation. They could have did something. They chose not to do nothing. We're paying for the water bill. We get excessive water bills. We get excessive increases in taxes because of these dilapidated houses, because these houses are sitting in ruins. And the only ones you want to hold accountable for this is us. What about them? You know, if you cannot find the owner of a property and you
it's
put their
not that they're
name in
not
and you try to
finding the
reach out
owner.
to them, they no longer own the property.
Nobody is saying they're not finding the owners. In many cases, the owners are known and the owners are being cited.
These houses
And
been
if you
sitting
go down to
dilapidated for
these
like 30,
hearings,
40 years. They're probably deceased.
Yolanda, if you go to these hearings,
not that
you will
one that
see
the house that just killed the house that just killed those firefighters, because it was the house. That house was in the same family since I think they said the 60s or something, and like they just don't live here. They live in Pennsylvania, so
correct.
no, they live it.
Correct, and
Right.
they usually will pay
whose
a
name
group.
is it doesn't matter how you try to switch it down. Whose name is on the deed? Whoever name is on that deed
It's
will be responsible for it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So here's the argument.
The
Here's the argument. There's going to be a hearing. Hearing comes up. The first thing the landlord says is, well, I did everything in compliance to code. The vacancy code says that I have to have the front of the property boarded up. I have to have the windows boarded up. I have to make sure that the structure itself is not falling on the streets. I did my part. Those folks that went into that home and broke into that home and were squatting in that home,
but
and
I'm
set
responsible
that fire
for that.
in that home. I have nothing to do with that.
But
I
if
have
I
nothing to do with that.
Jason,
Nothing.
if I went away for the weekend and somebody came in my house and they shot their stuff in my house, I'm responsible, because guess what? That's my house. I'm responsible whether I'm home or not.
Nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault but theirs.
I'm responsible whether I'm home or not. So anything that happens on that property is mine.
That's what the argument is, and it's a valid argument. In many cases, what they're going to say is because the city, and I'm just giving you an argument here. I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I told you this during our post meeting. I've heard literally similar arguments like this, and there are activists and community leaders that know that Leo Burrows is one that has heard
tell activists to go pay for it.
Hold on, that has heard landlords come and testify to some BS like this, that has actually come and stood on the grounds that it's not them, that it's the community in many cases that's causing the issues, because at the end of the day, I'm following the rules. But if you didn't have drugs running rampant in your community, if you didn't have homeless people running rampant in your community, guess what? My property that I secured up and that I have it as a vacant property because I'm deciding I don't want to do anything with it right now, and that is my right. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It is their right under the current laws.
Right, because
it is their right. I don't have to develop a property because you tell me I have to develop a property. That's not the rules. And that's what they stand on.
Jason, they're still responsible for the property. They're still responsible for checking.
If somebody get hurt on the property, that's theirs.
They're only responsible again. If the property is vacant.
I think not enough people is saying enough. I think people, like, if they're not affected, they hush up. I think if enough people is affected, if we get enough people and convince enough people, then not let them just slide that stuff by, because at the end of the day, that's our people that's living between those empty houses. That's us that's being affected, but we want to mind our business when it don't affect us.
I only go by the rules and the laws of the landscape currently. I can only go by that because
the rules of the land
you have to understand. You have to understand that's what they are going to utilize.
Jason, the rules of the land said that
in our community
for anything that happens on that property. That's what the rules say. You wait a minute, when the grass needs to
trust
be cut,
me, they have insurance.
For it.
They have insurance. They have insurance.
Okay, so let the insurance pay for them fines and stuff, not the people next door.
No, so when you talk about the fines, let's get into that discussion. So there are actually companies here in Maryland that you can hire. Those companies will come and represent you in those hearings. Many times these landlords don't even show up to these hearings. They send a representative. And they can go in there and they will argue their case. And I'm telling you.
So who else can go in there though? What does the hearing look like? Does the hearing look like a public?
The public may be able to, and I'm pretty sure that there's some sort of formality, just like with the Board of Estimates. But the public as well has the ability in these code enforcement hearings to be able to, voice their opinion, especially if it's something that is causing an issue in reference to the community and toll. I've been to several different meetings. I've been to Board of Estimates meetings. I've been to zoning meetings. I've been to a building inspection meeting one time, to get a fine lifted because of a building inspection. And usually there is a format that allows both public testimony as well as the person who has a complaint, that's being charged against them, to be able to argue that case. And again, in many cases, they're going to argue, arguments like what I'm telling you. They're going to say, I had nothing to do with this. They have most of these landlords are going to say, I have nothing to do with these fires and these gas explosions and these folks, bodies being found in my properties. I'm doing what's basically on the books, and I'm keeping my properties secure. The city needs to do a better job and keeping these folks from breaking into my property that I secured. That would be my argument.
That would doesn't have walls. That's not secure. That's not secure. Secure means it's secure. It's locked. Can't access it. It doesn't mean. I mean, I get it. Like most.
I had wood with nails and screws in the doorway.
Jason, come on now.
Really
I'm not talking about
break into this property.
We're not talking about those of houses. We're talking about the ones that's literally they got both what is those little wood stick things holding the building up. And what happens, like, come on, that affects my property too. The look of it, the value, everything's brought down when all you got is a couple of dollars of fines. So what does the process look like? So is it an open door type of situation where so we can bring people in there and then we can start embarrassing them and letting people know what actually happens? And that way we actually educate everybody on the process?
Well, see, the thing is, the thing is that we need to tell them, our city council, that not only do you make them pay fines, you hold them responsible if something was to happen in those houses.
But they said that.
No. I'm talking about if somebody dies in that house, you have to be charged. If somebody, right. So if somebody gets caught in the house and it catches on fire, you need to be charged. It has to be more accountability and for the ones who own these properties. And then their number.
But that, again, the accountability is I locked my property up.
I don't care.
Your Honor, whoever, the council, the panel, the city council president.
Well, I locked my property up. Charge them.
It's not my fault that you have people in the neighborhood that are on drugs, that are breaking into my home, that are building campfires.
And it's not my neighbor's fault that you are not putting up enough support on your building and it's dragging my house down too. That's not my fault.
Their phone number should be public. No, their phone number should be public. The community
and their home address.
Well, their information is public. Because all you have to do is go to the tax. All you have to do is go to the Maryland tax assessment, and you can see who these owners are. And I'm telling you.
So maybe we should start posting it. That's what I'm saying. We have to bring the right attention to it.
I understand. This is not the first time this conversation has come out. There have been numerous community folks and community groups that have investigated these landlords and have found the common name and common Jewish owner and common, folks out of town. And matter of fact, in some cases have traced down people to where they live at, what states they live at. There's people in Texas, there's people in Florida,
what needs to be changed?
In Pennsylvania. You know
what needs to be changed? The eminent domain law needs to be changed. If I decide to move in your house as a squatter and I fix the house up and then you come along and want to take it back, you should not be able to I should not have to wait 20 years. That eminent domain needs to be changed.
No, why would it be changed? Because that's taking it from them. They don't use that law to take from their own.
I'm getting back to.
They use it to take from us.
These laws are there
to benefit the citizens who live in dilapidated communities.
But you got to understand that these laws were never made to protect the Black community. These laws were made to protect white assets. Period.
Because they never expected us to have them.
Correct. So in many cases, the reason why you see these properties the way that they are is because they have designed these rules. They have gone to committee hearings prior to, administrations way prior to this, and have set up the landscape and the real estate playing field of what you currently see in Baltimore City. And they're only playing by the rules. And to change the rules, it is an uphill battle. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying
I'm
that
saying it has to be done.
It has to be done. Don't get me wrong. The rules have to be changed to get a hold of
But
what's
that's when
going
we have to
on.
remove. We have to go in and change city charter, removing redlining and all this other crazy mess. We have to remove that Jim Crow era because none of that has ever been changed. Like I said, the eminent domain law needs to be changed. Like the guy that moved in the house up in what is it, California or something? He fixed up the house and bought it up to basically $1 million property. And then when the owner seen the house, somebody contacted the owner and said, somebody's living in your house. They didn't fix your house up. The owner wanted to come into the property and take it. The judge said, and tried to take them to court. The judge said, well, unless you're willing to give him all his money back, the house now belongs to him because he's been living in it for 5 years.
And maybe that's what needs to be done in some cases.
Yeah,
maybe we need to go into some of these properties and set up shop in some of these properties and rehab them.
I need to move. Give me one.
And the community should be willing to stand by these groups that go in there and do that and protect them. If there's retaliation in the end of the day, there has to be a legal mechanism behind it. There has to be, the lawyers willing to stand up. When a community says enough is enough, we're going to go in there and take, ownership of these properties, and we're going to do something with them for the community.
That's what I'm saying. Tell the community that if the community can go in,
I love that idea.
Fix up the properties, and then the money needs to go back to that community. Period. Mm-hmm. Take it by eminent domain.
But that went back to a conversation that we had earlier on the Patrick Henderson show on Meet the People, where we were talking about community rules or community laws, or in some cases, community courts, or in some cases when we have these issues like this, instead of waiting on the government to act and move, we say, you know what, enough is enough. We're taking these properties. We don't care who this property owner is in whatever state. You come up here and you deal with us. You ain't even here. But while this property exists here, this is what the community is going to do with it.
I done twisted my head too tight.
But that would mean that there'd have to be some sort of community rule or community court or governing body that's willing to take these risks, that are willing to say, you know what, this is not a public safety issue. This is not a Mayor Scott issue. This is not a city council issue. This is our neighborhood issue. And we need to address it as neighbors, as our community. You know what I mean? I mean, what do you think about something like that? A community court or a community governing body that addresses things like this, like blight.
Well, you know what, Jason? It sounds good from the beginning, but then you'll get those bullies in these community meetings, and and then the ones
that now with the community.
I know, but then if you throw out another one, then the ones that don't feel heard, they won't show up, and then everybody else will be bullied into other decisions. So I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know. So I don't have much faith in that process.
Yolanda, what do you think about community rule?
We can't even get her on this screen. Where is she at?
I'm right here.
Yolanda. No, we can't see you.
No, we don't see you. What do you think about community rule, community court, like a community governing body that in some cases handles this? When we see these properties, like for instance, we know Doc has told us plenty of times, Doc Cheatham has told us plenty of times, that he's called and complained about several properties. He had one property explode that he actually had complaints on, that actually caught a gas fire and exploded because they were squatting in the house and they were utilizing the gas inside the property. I mean, what do you think about that? A community governing body that goes in there and says, enough is enough. We're taking over. We're going to deal with these dilapidated properties. And she dropped off, of course. Okay, she's back.
I mean, Yolanda, if you stop, you know what? I swear, how many shows? She hard headed, y'all. Like, I don't understand. Like, y'all Jason.
What? What?
So, what do you think? Community rule, community governance, community court.
First of all, we can't keep, like I said, if we don't put guardrails in place for people, none of this stuff will ever succeed. You can say that this sounds good, all this and that and the third, but you see the last incidents that we done had, it did not. It was not conducive for the people. We had people reaching out the house, whose house been shot in, and there's no guardrails and no protection set in place for them to go testify. You like, oh well, we're just gonna wait for them to go to court. What is wrong with you? So if you're talking about having a whole community of people, basically community court, who's gonna protect the ones that's supposed to be in court? I hear crickets pissing on cotton.
I mean, it'd be the community again. We're talking about community rule. We're talking about the community addressing.
But we're dealing with communities that's not dealing with regular crime. It's terrorism. So by there being terrorism in the community, you think you can't even get them to sit up there and say such and such did it. You think that you're actually going to get somebody to say, "Oh, we're going to sit on this piece of a community court so they can really go to jail?"
Yeah, but add some money to it. Somebody will tell.
They add money to it. They don't tell. Because they feel like their life, Donna, the way that they're being done.
Yeah, $750,000 for Detective Suter
this week.
I mean, that's because they did it. Right. They did it.
Like, but I think even one of them was snitched. I think even one of them was snitched.
I'm trying to tell you. I don't care how much money they put out there.
For that kind of money? I mean,
listen, let me tell you something. And whoever saw it, whoever around there saw it, know them cops did it. And they ain't saying nothing. They ain't worth their life. Nobody crazy. In Baltimore is the city that snitches on each other and respect the snitches, and then try to tell you don't snitch and change the narrative. Like, y'all know where we at.
Exactly. But where we at now is that there's no protection from our state's attorney's office. There's no protection from the police department. Matter of fact, hell, you got police telling drug dealers, "Oh, it was the lady down the street." What the hell?
Yeah, they've been doing that a long time.
Yeah, but the thing is that you're putting lives in danger, and you want these people to go to court and testify. It's not gonna happen.
But now you want to have the city come in and regulate dilapidated properties, and they can't even protect citizens that are doing the right thing.
No, they can. They don't want to.
We can't pick up the trash. We got potholes everywhere in Baltimore City. We have a public safety issue in Baltimore City. I'm just telling you that the current governance.
Let's talk about how public safety has failed our citizens.
Let's talk about. Hold on, real quick. Let's talk about. I know y'all see me. This ponytail is so tight. It hurts so bad. I need a moment, and I don't want to touch it because it's going to chew. It's going to come down. So I just need y'all to forgive me, but excuse me. Okay, yeah, moving right along.
I'm pretty sure all you women have ever had it wrapped up like that are feeling her right about now. So.
But it's so like I'm trying to tell you, it's like the because I just literally just threw it up there real quick, you know I did, and it's like the more it's sitting up there, the tighter it gets. Yolanda, you know I did my own ponytail, so you can understand.
That's just crazy. She
like I feel like I'm bleeding. I feel like my scalp bleeding.
Well, take it down, Donna.
I can't.
Just let it flow like the river.
It's gonna look a whole mess. Right. I ain't
let it flow. Let it flow.
Let's talk about how long Donna's hair is.
Maybe next day.
Come on, where's our let it flow singing?
Jason, Jason, you know how the women be. The women will rather be in pain. Like I'm sitting here like tapping and
heels killing that corn. Got that.
It's giving me a headache right now. I'm about to hit disconnect. Like, oh, y'all done lost me. I'm sorry, I'm suffering.
Well, take it down.
I know.
Girdle got both your lungs collapsed, and
well, you still got this piece on. Just let it fall down the back.
Oh no!
I'm trying to help you out, Donna.
Yeah.
We are people empowered by the struggle, and we can't even solve the.
And I am struggling. I am struggling.
The hair struggle.
Look, and I can't go to like it's wrapped kind of tight, right? But if I move the wrong way, it's gonna fall. This was a quick do. Like it was a real quick do. I didn't have a lot of time to get it together. I'm having a bad day. I told you I'm having a bad day. I've been in pain all week.
Yeah, we have to let's talk about the public safety issue. How people don't know. And I actually didn't find this out until I talked to Commissioner Harrison myself about the commissioner's office is not governed by the state's attorney nor the police department. It's governed over by the state. And when we go down and file warrants for people, that's just regular people that work there. They're not, they have no law degrees. They have no knowledge of law. They have no nothing. The ones that you can go down and file false charges when people, bam, here go your warrant number right here.
Well,
And I talked to Nick Mosby.
their job is to pull the statement in from the police and from the witnesses, and then take that to a judge and then issue a warrant. Correct? That's usually the process. Correct?
Yeah. So it's not that hard, and there's no investigation done. And I spoke to Nick Mosby on the issue too, and he said that get in touch with Jill Carter, Antonio Hayes, or anybody on the safety committee in our delegation that will sit up there and help us push a bill that it should be a criminal act, that if you go file a false warrant on a person and then you don't show up in court, or
especially multiple ones, because that is ridiculous.
It's perjury. They need to be charged with perjury because because baby daddy don't want to be with you, or because you got a new girlfriend. That don't mean you go to jail.
Or because you told that you shot up my house, now you want to go ahead and get somebody to file charges on me, false charges on me, because you want to retaliate because I'm doing the right thing.
That's gonna be a whole nother storyline, y'all, because I think we need to address that one day. The amount of abuse that phone calls that I'm starting to receive, as far as like the guys cheating on the girlfriends, and then they shooting at the girlfriends and even shooting the girlfriends. Like,
no, how about shooting up the mother's house?
But that's what I'm saying. It's like the amount of those calls and the amount of suicide calls and the amount of just like the brokers is like, if they don't understand, if they don't get a hold of it now, the fact just keep going.
But because the age, let's look at the age group that's of the ones that's doing it. I mean, one of them we received a young man shot up a lady's house that he used to live with because her and the son got into it over a game. You shot up somebody's house.
Mm-hmm.
You shoot up somebody's house.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
Hey, wait a minute. And they were a teenager, right? They were a teenager.
Just turned 17, 18.
17, 18.
And then the one I just talked to, the granddaughter is 21. So the boyfriend is, she don't know how old the boyfriend is, but she knows he's around the same age. So if you don't understand, like, what happens when you go through, it's like you have angry family members, and you have and then like they getting back with these guys. Like, oh my God, like that's going to be a whole nother show. We'll save that for another day.
I think there's something too that Yo-Yo could share with us really quick. Is the sentiment of the detectives that are assigned to these types of cases, how they feel about it. In many cases, Yolanda, can you expound on that really quick?
The man, Baltimore City detective, actually got into it yesterday because her thing is that she basically want to victimize the victims. Well, I see that the brother had a gun charge, and I see that he's been shot. So the stigma floats on top that, well, he had to retaliate. So one of them bullets in the yard has to be his. One of the ones that had him shooting out the window has to be his. So we only gonna protect the girl.
Or he may be associated with the instigation of it because he has that lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Well, he had that life.
Well, they don't know that. Again, once you see somebody and you see their history, it's almost like somebody was saying one time, you got to be careful because if you have a violent criminal history, somebody goes and runs your tag, that's following you behind, that may show up on your driver's history. They pull the car up, it identifies that there's, a owner of the vehicle. They pull the owner of the vehicle. First thing is, it shows that you have an old violent history. And the first thing that happens is that officer is in defense mode the whole time because he's thinking, you could act out, at any time. I got to watch myself. But that may not be the case. He may be totally reformed, may have turned his life to Jesus for all might be
I know, because we change, don't we, Jason? Right. Don't we change?
I mean,
well, see, the thing is that we have to start.
But wait, he didn't answer that, Yolanda. Don't we change, Jason? We change, don't we? That's right.
Well, see, the thing is that we have to start standing up for what's right and stop sitting down for what's white. It doesn't even make sense for this type of manic behavior. Like there's Nothing put in place. If we're not going to protect the people, let the people protect themselves. We need a self-defense law. We need a right to carry law. We need a stand your ground law. If you're not going to let these people protect me from my victim, from my predators, then I have to learn how to protect myself. And these predators sometimes are police officers and sometimes cops, because I told you who did what to me in my house. And you're going to sit up there and tell me, well, maybe he's a part of the problem because he has a criminal record.
It's set up that way. He has
the right to change. That incident could have been the one that said, you know what, right here, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to play this game anymore. So I'm going to tell who did it, and I'm done. I'm out. It's out. Me and He-Man, we're out.
Or either, how about I just go kill him myself? Like, if they're not going to protect me, because I've been there. I've been at the point where, it's like, I'm not getting no help. I'm going to help myself.
See, that's the thing. In Baltimore City, I'm going to get them before they get me mentality is definitely here.
And that's what we learn. That's what we grew up in. And then somebody's angry because somebody else. And then, it's like, God forbid something happened to somebody you love, because then you're yet making the decision whether or not, okay, well, I done let them take my boy. I done let them take my son. They done took my daughter. I'm too broken for those decisions.
Right. And that's the other perspective that, Yolanda, I want you to expound on as well. That you said the city, technically, you're supposed to be wanting to stop trauma. You're supposed to be wanting to stop violence.
They're part of it.
So how is that stopping violence if you're coming at the family as they are just as a part of the problem as the person who perpetuates?
Jason, they don't want to stop that problem. That's just like doctors. That's like pharmacists. Pharmacists need patients. Police need victims. Police need, so if the community is fixed, they won't need, that's the mentality I feel like they have. So they keep this trauma going, like they're not trying to fix us. Even with the pain I'm in, instead of them doing something to fix my pain, they would rather keep me coming back. It's a rotation of keeping money in their pocket. Remember, they got a whole lot of student loans and debt.
Yeah, I was just reading that article too. But my thing is that people has to stop wanting to be a part of the solution and be a part of the revolution. It has to change.
Right.
It has to change. We cannot keep doing this and saying that we love our city. That's a lie from the pits of hell. And then we have to be into preventative measures, not things to step in. Police is not a preventative measure. Police job is to come in after the crime has already been committed. So we need to introduce something for preventative measures. How can we stop this right here? Stand your ground law. 2, self-defense law. 3, right to carry law.
4, we figure out the meaning of snitches, because in Baltimore and Maryland, they use it for what, like the same ones that's out here saying you're a rat. They in the game and they're ratting. They're the same
ones that's out here saying is also the same ones that's,
and that's what I'm saying. Grandma is not the rat, honey. Grandma, the citizen that just got knocked over the head that called 911 because they saw who did it, they're not the rat, babe.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
about this is cultural, though. This is cultural.
It's sickening.
It's cultural.
But it's also embedded in our city government.
It's sickening.
If there's no protection for the workers, police officers go through it all the time. Our city government workers go through it all the time, even all the way up to the president's office. So how do we stop that culture before we stop this culture?
But when I meant cultural, we started at home. Stop snitching on your brother. Stop telling on your cousin. Nobody likes a tattletale. Nobody likes a snitch. We start the culture at a young age.
Oh, but hold on. What else did they tell you, though?
All the time.
What is the conflict in doing that, though, Jason? Hold on.
You lie and tell that you ain't home.
Hold on, Jason, but hold on. Let me tell you the conflict with that.
You're already lying from the beginning.
But Jason, what is the conflict with that? Stop snitching. Don't you go tell on your brother. And then they tell you, I'm gonna whoop you if you don't tell on your brother. Like they teach you to steal and then say it's wrong to steal. Like what you say? Children will be what they see. Like, you're literally telling me what to do, just like in the school system. They teaching you how to be, and then they don't like what they see. None of this makes sense, but it's just that common sense, CNTS and the SENSE rule. You know, like it makes the money. They got to keep you illiterate. They got to keep this game going on. They got to keep you sick. They got to keep you as a criminal. Like they didn't convince you that this is the way that life is. It's not the way life is.
They got to keep the communities based the way that they are. And we talked about this earlier on the radio show. You know, to me, the way that America communities are built, that's not how we were ancestrally kind of designed to live. We were designed to live in a village and a tribal mentality. So everything that we do is not within our ancestry roots. When you look at the American way of living, the American dream, you know, get the home, you know, with some land, and everybody's far away from you, and you don't care
buy
what's
the
going
home from
on.
land that was stolen from you from the beginning. Buy that land back. Buy it back. And then once you get comfortable in that land, we're going to snatch it because you bought house on land that's no longer yours. So now we need you to eminently domain and move away. You know, like who going to keep going for this? Like, you know, it's not making sense to me. And I'm at the point now that I'm angry. Like, it's disrespectful. Y'all done this over and over again. Like, so what's next? That's what I'm saying. Like, we already know what the problem is. We already know what the march is about. We already know what they're going to do to us. But what's next?
Right. And that's funny that you say that, because Doc said earlier that he feels that he's failed the next generation. Because for, you know, these are our, Doc Cheatham is one of our older civil rights, you know, leaders, and has fought all kinds of fights in Baltimore City. But he's saying that there doesn't seem to be the next wave of those who are ready to fight. Like, we're angry, but we need to be riled up like we were before, when we were angry about the Reed's drugstore, when we were angry about Liberty Park and not having access to Liberty Park, you know, and we protested Liberty Park, when we did the things, you know, to end redlining and public housing, you know, to end segregation in the school system, you know, even though we feel that we still should be segregated because we were better off when we were a segregated community. This assimilation into this American, you know, ideology and dream is not our true purpose, and it hasn't worked for us. And we have to find another way of living, or else we're going to perish as a people.
Well, the thing is that I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it: desegregate and have our own.
You mean
we should
resegregate?
Not have to live by their rules.
You mean resegregate?
We should not have to live by their rules and their laws that's meant to attack us, to re-victimize us, to re-traumatize us. And we're not.
You talking about reset, but you saying put it back together. Some of them folk ain't coming back to them communities.
Correct.
And they can stay on. You know, you got somebody in your family.
Let them go.
You got somebody in your family. Like he not invited back. That both themselves, brother.
No, don't invite them back. They have to be grandfathered in. They have to come in with rules and regulations on how to be, like Doc Cheatham said, how to be a good neighbor. And you know, white people do it. Asian people do it. They don't let any and everybody move into their community.
Yolanda, no, listen, they're still reading How to Be a Good Nigga. Excuse me. Excuse me. They still reading that book. They got to put that book down first.
Come on now.
I'm just saying. I mean, we don't have much time, but we can continue this next week. Y'all being good niggas for them. Y'all being real good niggas.
It's 6:54. We gotta give out our ending comments.
But to close out, you know, with what you guys are saying, and really expounding on what Yolanda has always said, you know, we need a revolution. And even today, Patrick was saying an evolution, and then Yolanda came back with a revolution. Meaning that it has to be an evolving revolution. That revolution has to constantly evolve as it fights its fights. The fights of what Doc and them fought for are totally different now. There's a total different fight that we have going on right now. But we do need more soldiers. We do need more warriors that are willing to stand up on many of these issues in our community. So. But
yeah, Yolanda, they need to stop looking at it like a revolution, like you do it over and over again. It's rev. You know, like if you teach them how, it's all in the narrative, bro. Like it's all in the narrative. They think they supposed to do it over and over again. No, it's supposed to be done and over with. Sorry, Yolanda, but